I have no idea what just happened. It just decided to cancel, and apparently the quality is crap now. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe something with the internet around here. Nothing with my computer. It looks like everything's fine. So I'll just do the reading. The quality might not be great, but we'll just deal with it. We'll just deal with it. Hey? I scared y'all. Let me know in the chat if the quality's the same down there. Looks good to you? All right, great. Then I'm gonna keep on going. So I'm just gonna have Dexter here the whole time. Where we left off is he was about to tell them the story of the tales of the tales of the three brothers. So we'll see. The quality's the same. All right, cool. Well, let's keep going. Hey, it's uncomfortable for you. Hey, buddy. All right, we'll get you down there. Okay, she pulled out the tale of Beetle the Bard from the small beaded bag. The original... Oh, wait, let's make some different music happen here. The original, inquired Xenophilia sharply, and when she nodded, he said, Well then, why don't you read it aloud? Much the best way to make sure we all understand. All right, said Hermione nervously. She opened the book, and Harry saw that the symbol they were investigating headed the top of the page, as she gave a little cough and began to read. There were once three brothers who were travelling along a lonely, winding road at twilight. Midnight, our mum always told us, said Ron, who had stretched out, arms behind his head, to listen. Hermione shot him a look of annoyance. Sorry, I just think it's a bit spooky if it's at midnight, said Ron. Yeah, because we really need a bit more fear in our lives, said Harry, before he could stop himself. Xenophilius did not seem to be paying much attention, but was staring out of the window at the sky. Go on, Hermione. Everything works again? All right, good. In time, the brothers reached a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim across. However, these brothers were learned in the magical arts, and so they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear across the treacherous water. They were halfway across it when they found their path blocked by a hooded figure. And Death spoke to them. Sorry, interjected Harry, but Death spoke to them? It's a fairy tale, Harry. Right, sorry, go on. And Death spoke to them. He was angry that he had been cheated out of 3 new victims, for travellers usually drowned in the river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the 3 brothers upon their magic, and said that each had earned a prize for having been clever enough to evade him. So the older brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand that must always win duels for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who had conquered death. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river, fashioned a wand from a branch that hung there, and gave it to the oldest brother. Then the second brother, who was an arrogant man, decided that he wanted to humiliate Death still further, and asked for the power to recall others from death. So Death picked up a stone from the riverbank and gave it to the second brother, and told him that the stone would have the power to bring back the dead. Okay. And then Death asked the third and youngest brother what he would like. The youngest brother was the humblest and also the wisest of the brothers, and he did not trust Death. So he asked for something that would enable him to go forth from the place without being followed by Death. And Death, most unwillingly, handed over his own cloak of invisibility. Death's got an invisibility cloak? Harry interrupted again. So he can sneak up on people. Sometimes he gets bored of running at them, flapping his arms and shrieking. Oh, sorry, Hermione. I love it, love it. So Hermione's annoyed with him, but Ron's not like, he's just getting there. He's getting there. Then Death stood aside and allowed the 3 brothers to continue on their way, and they did so, talking with wonder of the adventure they had had, and admiring Death's gifts. Death's gifts. In due course, the brothers separated, each for his own destination. The first brother travelled on for a week or more, and reaching a distant village, sought out a fellow wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Hey, bud. Found something to chew on. Naturally, with the Elder Wand as his weapon, he could not fail to win the duel that followed. Leaving his enemy dead upon the floor, the oldest brother proceeded to an inn, where he boasted loudly of the powerful wand he had snatched from Death himself, and of how it made him invisible. That very night, another wizard crept upon the oldest brother as he lay, wine-sodden, upon his bed. The thief took the wand, and, for good measure, slit the oldest brother's throat. And so Death took the first brother for his own. Ooh, invincible, not invisible. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, the second brother journeyed to his own home, where he lived alone. Here he took out the stone that had the power to recall the dead, and turned it thrice in his hand. To his amazement and his delight, the figure of the girl he had once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared at once before him. Yet she was sad and cold, separated from him as by a veil. Though she had returned to the mortal world, she did not truly belong there and suffered. Finally, the second brother, driven mad with hopeless longing, killed himself so as truly to join her. And so Death took the second brother for his own. But though Death searched for the third brother for many years, he was never able to find him. It was only when he had attained a great age that the youngest brother finally took off the cloak of invisibility and gave it to his son. And then he greeted Death as an old friend, and went with him gladly, and, equals, they departed this life. Well, that's a hot tip. If you ever run into Death, don't accept gifts. Hermione closed the book. It was a moment or two before Xenophilius seemed to realize that she had stopped reading. Then he withdrew his gaze from the window and said, "Well, there you are." "Sorry?" said Hermione, sounding confused. "Those are the Deathly Hallows," said Xenophilius. He picked up a quill from a packed table at his elbow, and pulled a torn piece of parchment from between more books. "The Elder Wand," he said, and he drew a straight vertical line upon the parchment. "The Resurrection Stone," he said, and he added a circle on top of the line. "The Cloak of Invisibility," he finished, enclosing both line and circle in a triangle, to make the symbol that so intrigued Hermione. "Together," he said, "the Deathly Hallows." "But there's no mention of the words Deathly Hallows in the story," said Hermione. "Well, of course not," said Xenophilius, maddeningly smug. "That is a children's tale, told to amuse rather than to instruct. Those of us who understand these matters, however, recognize that the ancient story refers to 3 objects, or hallows, which, if united, will make the professor Master of Death." There was a short silence in which Xenophilius glanced out of the window. Already the sun was low in the sky. Luna ought to have enough plimp peace soon, he said quietly. "When you say, Master of Death," said Ron. "Master," said Xenophilius, waving an airy hand. "Conqueror, vanquisher. Whichever term you prefer." "But then, do you mean," said Hermione slowly, and Harry could tell that she was trying to keep any trace of skepticism out of her voice, "that you believe these objects, these hallows, actually exist?" Xenophilius raised his eyebrows again. "Well, of course." "But," said Hermione, and Harry could hear her restraint starting to crack, "Mr. Lovegood, how can you possibly believe—" "Luna has told me all about you, young lady," said Xenophilius. "You are, I gather, not unintelligent, but painfully limited, narrow, close-minded. Perhaps you ought to try on the hat, Hermione, said Ron, nodding towards the ludicrous headdress. His voice shook with the strain of not laughing. Mr. Lovegood, Hermione began again, we all know that there are such things as invisibility cloaks. They are rare, but they exist. But the third Hallow is a true cloak of invisibility, Miss Granger. I mean to say it is not a travelling cloak imbued with a disillusionment charm, or carrying a bedazzling hex, or else woven from demiguy's hair, which will hide one initially, but fade with the years until it turns opaque. We are talking about a cloak that really and truly renders the wearer completely invisible, and endures eternally, giving constant and impenetrable concealment, no matter what spells you cast at it. How many cloaks have you ever seen like that, Miss Granger? Hermione opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again, looking more confused than ever. She, Harry, and Ron glanced at one another, and Harry knew that they were all thinking the same thing. It so happened that a cloak exactly like the one Xenophilius had just described was in the room with them at that very moment. Exactly, said Xenophilius, as if he had defeated them all in reasoned argument. None of you have ever seen such a thing. The possessor would be immeasurably rich, would he not? He glanced out of the window again. The sky was now tinged with the faintest trace of pink. All right, said Hermione, disconcerted. Say the cloak existed. What about the stone, Mr. Lovegood? The thing you call the resurrection stone? Okay, so he got the invisibility cloak from Dumbledore, right? In the first book? Was it in the first book? So was Dumbledore, if this is true, only if this is true, don't ruin anything else. If this is true, Dumbledore was thinking ahead about whatever this thing is? 7 books? The stone. Oh, what of it? Well, how can that be real? Prove that it is not, said Xenophilius. Hermione looked outraged. But that's... I'm sorry, but that's completely ridiculous. How can I possibly prove it doesn't exist? Do you expect me to get hold of all the pebbles in the world and test them? I mean, you could claim anything's real if the only basis for believing in it that nobody's proved it doesn't exist. I'm with her there. Yes, you could, said Xenophilius. I am glad to see that you are opening your mind a little. So, the Elder Wand, said Harry quickly, before Hermione could retort. You think that exists too? Oh, well, in that case there is... endless evidence, said Xenophilius. The Elder Wand is the Hallow that is most easily traced because of the way in which it passes from one hand to hand. Which is what? Asked Harry. Which is what the possessor of the wand must capture. Well, so it's different. What did Mark say? Okay, wait, what did Mark say? It was from Dumbledore, but it was Harry's dad cloak. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, 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 wow. So maybe Harry's dad was onto something here. He was on an adventure or something like that. Involved in all this. Which is that the professor of the wand must capture it from its previous owner if he is to be truly master of it, said Xenophilius. Surely you have heard of the way the wand came to Egbert the egregious, after his slaughter of Emmerich the Evil, of how Godelot died in his own cellar after his son Hereward took the wand from him, or of the dreadful Loxius, who took the wand from Barnabas de Veril, whom he had killed. The bloody trail of the Elder Wand is splattered across the pages of wizarding history. Okay. Slaughtered Emmerich the Evil, Godolk died in his cellar after his own son took the wand from him, dreadful Loxius. So this is, it's a bloodshed wand. It's a wand that just sheds blood wherever it goes. Harry glanced at Hermione. She was frowning at Xenophilius, but she did not contradict him. So, what do you think the Elder Wand is now? Asked Ron. Ah, alas, who knows? Said Xenophilius, as he gazed out of the window. Who knows where the Elder Wand lies hidden? The trail goes cold with Arcus and Livius. Who can say which of them really defeated Loxius and which took the wand? And who can say who may have defeated them? History, alas, does not tell us. There was a pause. Finally, Hermione asked stiffly, Mr. Lovegood, does the Peveril family have anything to do with the Deathly Hallows? Xenophilius looked taken aback. Peveril? Peveril? Who's Peveril? I can't remember anymore. Looked taken aback as something shifted in Harry's memory, but he could not locate it. Peveril. He had heard that name before. But you have been misleading me, young woman, said Xenophilius, now sitting up much straighter in his chair and goggling at Hermione. I thought you were new to the Hallows quest. Many of us questers believe that the Peverils have everything to do with the Hallows. Who are the Peverils? Asked Ron. That was the name on the grave with the mark on it in Godric's Hollow, said Hermione, still watching Xenophilius. Ignotus Peveril. Exactly, said Xenophilius, his forefinger raised pedantically. The sign of the Deathly Hallows on Ignotus's grave is conclusive proof. Of what? Asked Ron. Why, that the three brothers in the story were actually the three Peveril brothers. Antioch, Cadmus, and Ignotus. That they were the original owners of the Hallows. With another glance at the window, he got to his feet, picked up the tray, and headed for the spiral staircase. You will stay for dinner, he called as he vanished downstairs again. Just picks up and leaves. Everybody always requests our recipe for freshwater plimpy soup. Probably to show the poisoning department at St. Mungo's, said Ron under his breath. Okay, so I don't know the importance yet of these brothers of the Peveril family, and I don't think I need to know it right now because it hasn't really been revealed. Other than that, there was a stone at the graveyard. Hermione saw it, put two and two together somehow, and asked about them. Yeah. Harry waited until they could hear Xenophilius moving about. I don't know why I take off my glasses. It's not like I see better or worse when I do this. It's just a habit. I don't know. Harry waited until they could hear Xenophilius moving about in the kitchen downstairs before speaking. What do you think? He asked. No, what do you think? He asked Hermione. Oh, Harry, she said wearily. It's a pile of utter rubbish. This can't be what the sign really means. This must just be his weird take on it. What a waste of time. Suppose this is the man who bought us crumpled horn snorkax, said Ron. You don't believe it either? Harry asked him. Nah, that story's just one of those things you tell kids to teach them lessons, isn't it? Don't go looking for trouble. Don't pick fights. Don't get messing around with that stuff that's best left alone. Just keep your head down, mind your own business, and you'll be okay. Come to think of it, Ron added. Maybe that story is why Elder Wands are supposed to be unlucky. What are you talking about? One of those superstitions, isn't it? May-born witches will marry muggles. Jinx by twilight, undone by midnight. Wand of Elder, never prosper. You must have heard them. My mum's full of them. Harry and I were raised by muggles, Hermione reminded him. We were taught different superstitions. She sighed deeply as a rather pungent smell drifted up from the kitchen. The one good thing about her exasperation with Xenophilius was that it seemed to have made her forget that she was annoyed with Ron. I think you're right, she told him. It's just a morality tale. It's obvious which gift is best, which one you'd choose. The three of them spoke at the same time. Hermione said, the cloak. Ron said, the wand. And Harry said, the stone. What? Of course the cloak. Why would you listen to that story? Either Ron and Harry be like, yep, I'd take the wand. Or, I'll take the stone. When they just died as soon as they try to use those things. What? Okay, they're not that dumb. Why would you choose anything other than the cloak? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. They looked at each other, half surprised, half amused. You're supposed to say the cloak, Ron told Hermione. But you wouldn't need to be invisible if you had the wand. An unbeatable wand, Hermione. Come on. We've already got an invisibility cloak, said Harry. And it's helped us rather a lot, in case you haven't noticed, said Hermione. Whereas the wand would be bound to attract trouble. Only if you shouted at it, argued Ron. Only if you were prat enough to go dancing around, waving it over your head and singing, I've got an unbeatable wand. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, as long as you kept your trap shut. Yes, but could you keep your trap shut? Said Hermione, looking skeptical. So good. You know, the only true thing he said to us was that there have been stories about extra powerful wands for hundreds of years. They have? Asked Harry. Hermione looked exasperated. The expression was so endearingly familiar that Harry and Ron grinned at each other. The Death Stick, the Wand of Destiny, they crop up under different names through centuries, usually in the possession of some dark wizard who's boasting about them. Professor Binns mentioned some of them, but it's all nonsense. Wands are only as powerful as the wizards who use them. Some wizards just like to boast that theirs are bigger and better than other people's. But how do you know, said Harry, that those wands, the Death Stick and the Wand of Destiny, aren't the same wand, surfacing over the centuries under different names? What? They're all really the Elder Wand, made by death, said Ron. Harry laughed. That's his laugh. The strange idea that had occurred to him was, after all, ridiculous. No, I think that's true. I think he nailed it. That's absolutely what's happening. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's what's happening. His wand, he reminded himself, had been of holly, not elder, and it had been made by Ollivander. Whatever it had done, that night Voldemort had pursued him across the skies. And if it had been unbeatable, how could it have been broken? So, why would you take the stone? Ron asked him. Well, if you could bring people back, we could have Sirius, Mad-Eye, Dumbledore, my parents. Neither Ron nor Hermione smiled. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. It's an emotional choice. It's not a logical choice on Harry's part. It's a very emotional choice. But according to Beedle the Bard, they wouldn't want to come back, would they? Said Harry, thinking about the tale they had just heard. I don't suppose there have been loads of other stories about a stone that can raise the dead, have there? He asked Hermione. No, she replied sadly. I don't think anyone except Mr. Lovegood could kid themselves that's possible. Beedle probably took the idea from the Philosopher's Stone. You know, instead of a stone to make you immortal, a stone to reverse death. The smell from the kitchen was getting stronger. It was something like burning underpants. Harry wondered whether it would be possible to eat enough of whatever Xenophilius was cooking to spare his feelings. What about the cloak, though? Said Ron slowly. Don't you realize? He's right. I've got so used to Harry's cloak and how good it is, I never stopped to think. I've never had one like Harry's. It's infallible. We've never been spotted under it. Of course not. We're invisible when we're under it, Ron. But all the stuff he said about other cloaks, and they're not exactly Tenor Knut. You know, it's true. It's never occurred to me before, but I've heard stuff about charms wearing off cloaks when they get old, or them being ripped apart by spells so they've got holes in. Harry's was owned by his dad. So it's not exactly new, is it? But it's just perfect. Yes, all right, but Ron, the stone... As they argued in whispers, Harry moved around the room, only half listening. Reaching the spiral stair, he raised his eyes absently to the next level and was distracted at once. His own face was looking back at him from the ceiling of the room above. Mirrors. Probably just a mirror. Iman writes, I don't get why Hermione's so skeptical. They literally live in a world with magic. That is so true. That is so true. That couldn't be possible. No. No. Everything else is possible, but not this. That's right, Iman. After a moment's bewilderment, he realized that it was not a mirror, but a painting. Curious, he began to climb the stairs. Harry, what are you doing? I don't think you should look around when he's not here. But Harry had already reached the next level. You know, there's no said Hermione or Ron, but it's so clear who's saying that. Obviously, it's Hermione. But Harry had already reached the next level. Luna had decorated her bedroom ceiling with 5 beautifully painted faces. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and Neville. That is she is the sweetest person in the entire world. She painted her best friends' faces on the ceiling of her room because she loves them that much. That is so damn sweet. Oh, Luna. Luna's just the best. Are you kidding me? So good. I could just imagine her being like, I really like them. Just spending like 2 days just painting their faces. Oh, that looks like Harry. Oh, yes. I'll do Ginny next. I love her. Oh, just like, it's too much. She's too much. She's just too sweet. She's just too sweet. They were not moving as the portraits at Hogwarts moved, but there was a certain magic about them all the same. Harry thought they breathed. What appeared to be fine golden chains wove around the pictures, linking them together, but after examining them for a minute or so, Harry realized that the chains were actually one word, repeated 1,000 times in golden ink. Friends, friends, friends. Oh my gosh. She painted the word. Wait. Wove around. Did she actual chains, or did she paint these chains? Because that's a lot of work. Harry felt a great rush of affection for Luna. He looked around the room. There was a large photograph beside the bed of a young Luna and a woman who looked very like her. They were hugging. Luna looked rather better groomed in this picture than Harry had ever seen her in life. The picture was dusty. This struck Harry as slightly odd. He stared around. Something was wrong. The pale blue carpet was also thick with dust. Oh no. There were no clothes in the wardrobe, whose doors stood ajar. The bed had a cold, unfriendly look, as though it had not been slept in for weeks. A single cobweb stretched over the nearest window, across a blood-red sky. She painted all of it. She painted all those thousands of words of friends. This world is too pure for her. This world does not deserve Luna. She is a being of pure light and goodness. What's wrong? Hermione asked as Harry descended the staircase. But before he could respond, Xenophilius reached the top of the stairs from the kitchen, now holding a tray laden with bowls. Mr. Lovegood, said Harry, where's Luna? Excuse me, where's Luna? Xenophilius halted on the top step. I already told you. She's down at Bottom Bridge, fishing for plimpies. So why have you only laid that tray for 4? Xenophilius tried to speak, but no sound came out. The only noise was the continued chugging of the printing press, and a slight rattle from the tray as Xenophilius' hands shook. I don't think Luna's been here for weeks, said Harry. Her clothes are gone. Her bed hasn't been slept in. Where is she? And why do you keep looking out of the window? Xenophilius dropped the tray. The bowls bounced and smashed. Harry, Ron, and Hermione drew their wands. Xenophilius froze, his hand about to enter his pocket. At that moment, the printing press gave a huge bang, and numerous quibblers came streaming across the floor from underneath the tablecloth. The press fell silent at last. Ay, ay, ay. Hermione stooped down and picked up one of the magazines, her wand still pointing at Mr. Lovegood. Harry, look at this. He strode over to her as quickly as he could through the clutter. The front of the quibbler carried his own picture, emblazoned with the words, Undesirable Number 1, and captioned, with the reward money. Uh-oh. Luna's dad is just not a good guy, apparently, but I don't think he is. The quibbler's going for a new angle, then? Harry asked coldly, his mind working very fast. Is that what you were doing when you went into the garden, Mr. Lovegood? Sending an owl to the ministry? Xenophilius licked his lips. They took my Luna, he whispered, because of what I've been writing. They took my Luna, and I don't know where she is. What they've done to her. They might give her back to me if I... Hand over Harry, Hermione finished for him. No deal, said Ron flatly. Get out of the way. We're leaving. Oh, okay, so he's not a bad guy. He's just helpless. He's panicking. Oh, no, Luna! Luna, no! Oh, this sucks. This really sucks. I swear, if they take Luna away from everybody, if something bad happens to Luna, I think my heart will break the most. Xenophilius looked ghastly, a century old, his lips drawn back into a dreadful leer. They will be here any moment. I must save Luna. I cannot lose Luna. You must not leave. He spread his arms in front of the staircase, and Harry had a sudden vision of his mother doing the same thing in front of his cot. Don't make us hurt you, Harry said. Get out of the way, Mr. Lovegood. Harry! Hermione screamed. Figures on broomsticks were flying past the windows. As the three of them looked away from him, Xenophilius drew his wand. Oh my gosh, I did not expect it to go to this place right now. Harry realized their mistake just in time. He launched himself sideways, shoving Ron and Hermione out of harm's way as Xenophilius' stunning spell soared across the room and hit the rampant horn. There was a colossal explosion. The sound of it seemed to blow the room apart. Fragments of wood and paper and rubble flew in all directions, along with an impenetrable cloud of thick white dust. Harry flew through the air, then crashed to the floor, unable to see as debris rained upon him. His arms over his head, he heard Hermione scream, Ron's yell, and a series of sickening metallic thuds, which told him that Xenophilius had been blasted off his feet and fallen backwards down the spiral staircase. I don't like that. Half buried in rubble, Harry tried to raise himself. He could barely breathe or see for dust. Half of the ceiling had fallen in, and the end of Luna's bed was hanging through the hole. The bust of Rowena Ravenclaw lay beside him, with half its face missing. Fragments of torn parchment were floating through the air, and most of the printing press lay on its side, blocking the top of the staircase to the kitchen. Then another white shape moved close by, and Hermione, coated in dust like a second statue, pressed her finger to her lips. The door downstairs crashed open.
Didn't I tell you there was...
I don't know who this is.
Didn't I tell you there was no need to hurry, Travers?
Said a rough voice.
Didn't I tell you this nutter was just raving as usual?
There was a bang and a scream of pain from Xenophilius. No, upstairs, Potter.
I told you last week, Lovegood, we weren't coming back for anything less than some solid information. Remember last week, when you wanted to swap your daughter for that stupid bleeding headdress? And the week before, another bang, another squeal. When you thought we'd give her back if you offered us proof, there a crumpled bang, headed bang, snorkax.
No, I beg you, sobbed Xenophilius. It really is Potter, really.
And now it turns out you only called us here to try and blow us up,
roared the Death Eater. And there was a volley of bangs interspersed with squeals of agony from Xenophilius. The place looks like it's about to fall in. Who's this? Second voice. Cool. The place looks like it's about to fall in, Selwyn, said a cool second voice, echoing up the mangled staircase. The stairs are completely blocked. Could try clearing it. Might bring the place down.
You lying piece of filth,
shouted the wizard named Selwyn. If there's some adjectives for Selwyn without ruining anything, you can give them to me.
You've never seen Potter in your life, have you? Thought you'd lure us here to kill us, did ya? And you think you'll get your girl back like this?
I swear, Potter's upstairs. Hominem Revelio, said the voice at the foot of the stairs. Harry heard Hermione gasp. Old. Harry heard Hermione gasp, and he had the odd sensation that something was swooping low over him, immersing his body in its shadow. Oh, the cloak. Did she bring the cloak over them? Yeah, probably. There's someone up there, all right. Selwyn, said the second man sharply. It's Potter! I tell you, it's Potter! Sobbed Xenophilius. Please, give me Luna. Just let me have Luna.
You can have your little girl, Lovegood, said Selwyn, if you get up those stairs and bring me down Harry Potter. But if this is a plot, if it's a trick, if you've got an accomplice waiting up there to ambush us, we'll see if we can spare a bit of your daughter for you to bury.
Xenophilius gave a wail of fear and despair. There were scurryings and scrapings. Oh, these bastards. Xenophilius was trying to get through the debris on the stairs. Come on, Harry whispered. We've got to get out of here. This is nuts, y'all. This is nuts. He started to dig himself out under cover of all the noise Xenophilius was making on the staircase. Ron was buried deepest. Harry and Hermione climbed as quietly as they could over all the wreckage to where he lay, trying to prise a heavy chest of drawers off his legs. While Xenophilius' banging and scraping drew nearer and nearer, Hermione managed to free Ron with the use of a hover charm. All right, breathed Hermione, as the broken printing press blocking the top of the stairs began to tremble. Xenophilius was feet away from them. She was still white with dust. Do you trust me, Harry? Harry nodded. Okay, then, Hermione whispered. Give me the invisibility cloak. Ron, you're going to put it on. Me? But Harry... Please, Ron! Harry, hold on tight to my hand. Ron, grab my shoulder. She's got a perfect flippin' plan here, and she's gonna nail it, of course. Harry held out his left hand. Ron vanished beneath the cloak. The printing press blocking the stairs was vibrating. Xenophilius was trying to shift it using a hover charm. Harry did not know what Hermione was waiting for. Hold tight, she whispered. Hold tight. Any second. Xenophilius' paper-white face appeared over the top of the sideboard. Obliviate! Cried Hermione, pointing her wand first into his face, then at the door beneath them. De primo! She had blasted a hole in the sitting room floor. They fell like boulders, Harry still holding onto her hand for dear life. There was a scream from below, and he glimpsed two men trying to get out of the way as vast quantities of rubble and broken furniture rained all around them from the shattered ceiling. Hermione twisted in midair, and the thundering of the collapsing house rang in Harry's ears as she dragged him once more into darkness. Boo-wee, y'all. That was crazy. That was... Okay. So, they have Luna, which really sucks. Sucks. Love Luna. Especially after seeing her room and her heart even more. Sucks. And her dad, of course. I mean, I don't feel any kind of anger towards her dad. He just doesn't know what to do, right? He doesn't know what to do. I'm going to keep reading. Not this whole chapter, not for a very long time, but I'll keep reading. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I hope Xenophilius is alright after this. I hope they don't really hurt Luna. Can you understand the plan before Hermione explains it, MX Lexerd? Put the cloak over Ron. Huh. Are they zapping back to Sirius's house so that Ron can be in the front steps and they're behind him? Maybe that? Chapter 22, The Deathly Hallows. Here we go. Harry fell, panting, onto grass. I was wrong! And scrambled up at once. They seemed to have landed in the corner of a field at dusk. Hermione was already running in a circle around them, waving her hand. Protego tutelum, salvio hexa. The treacherous old bleeder, Ron panted, emerging from beneath the invisibility cloak and throwing it to Harry. Hermione, you're a genius, a total genius. Can't believe we got out of that. Cave inimicum. Didn't I say it was an irrumpent horn? Didn't I tell him? And now his house has been blown apart. Serves him right, said Ron, examining his torn jeans and the cuts to his legs. What do you reckon they'll do to him? I hope they don't kill him, groaned Hermione. That's why I wanted the Death Eaters to get a glimpse of Harry before we left, so they knew Xenophilius had been lying. Why hide me, though? Asked Ron. You're supposed to be in bed with Spattergroit, Ron. They've kidnapped Luna because her father supported Harry. What would happen to your family if they knew you're with him? What about your mum and dad? They're in Australia, said Hermione. They should be all right. They don't know anything. You're a genius, Ron repeated. Once again, I mean, are we even surprised anymore? Even surprised? She's like a Deus Ex Machina. She's like, she's intelligent. She just always knows. Yeah, you are, Hermione, agreed Harry fervently. I don't know what we'd do without you. She beamed, but became solemn at once. What about Luna? Well, if they're telling the truth, then she's still alive, began Ron. Don't say it, don't say it, squealed Hermione. She must be alive, she must! Yeah, she better be. Then she'll be in Azkaban, I expect, said Ron. Whether she survives the place, though. Loads don't. She will, said Harry. He could not bear to contemplate the alternative. She's tough, Luna. Much tougher than you think. She's probably teaching all the inmates about rackspurts and noggles. I hope you're right, said Hermione. She passed a hand over her eyes. I'd feel so sorry for Xenophilius. If you hadn't just tried to sell us to the Death Eaters, yeah, said Ron. They put up the tent and retreated inside it, where Ron made them tea. After their narrow escape, the chilly, musty old place felt like home. Safe, familiar, and friendly. Why did we go there? Groaned Hermione after a few minutes' silence. Harry, you were right. It was Godric's Hollow all over again. A complete waste of time. The Deathly Hallows. Pfft, such rubbish. Although, actually, a sudden thought seemed to have struck her. He might have made it all up, mightn't he? He probably doesn't believe in the Deathly Hallows at all. He just wanted to keep us talking until the Death Eaters arrived. I don't think so, said Ron. It's a damn sight harder making stuff up when you're under stress than you'd think. I found that out when the Snatchers caught me. It was much easier pretending to be Stan because I knew a bit about him than inventing a whole new person. Old Lovegood was under loads of pressure, trying to make sure we stayed put. I reckon he told us the truth, or what he thinks is the truth, just to keep us talking. Well, I don't suppose it matters, sighed Hermione. Even if he was being honest, I never heard such a lot of nonsense in my life. Hang on, though, said Ron. Chamber of Secrets was supposed to be a myth, wasn't it? But the Deathly Hallows can't exist, Ron. You keep saying that, but one of them can, said Ron. Harry's invisibility cloak. The tale of the three brothers is a story, said Hermione firmly. A story about humans are frightened of death. If surviving was as simple as hiding under the invisibility cloak, we'd have everything we need already. I don't know. We could do with an unbeatable wand, said Harry, turning the blackthorn wand he so disliked over in his fingers. There's no such thing, Harry. You said there have been loads of wands. The Death Stick and whatever they were called. All right. Even if you want to kid yourself the Elder One's real, what about the Resurrection Stone? Her fingers sketched quotation marks around the name, and her tone dripped sarcasm. No magic can raise the dead. And that's that. When my wand connected with you-know-whose, it made my mum and dad appear. And Cedric. But they weren't really back from the dead, were they? Said Hermione. Those kind of pale imitations aren't the same as truly bringing someone back to life. But the girl in the tale, didn't really come back, did she? The story says that once people are dead, they belong with the dead. But the second brother still got to see her and talk to her, didn't he? He even lived with her for a while. He saw concern and something less easily definable in Hermione's expression. Then, as she glanced at Ron, Harry realized that it was fear. He had scared her with his talk of living with dead people. So that Peverell bloke who's buried in Godric's Hollow, he said hastily, trying to sound robustly sane. You don't know anything about him, then? No, she replied, looking relieved at the change of subject. I looked him up after I saw the mark on his grave. If he'd been anyone famous or done anything important, I'm sure he'd be in one of our books. The only place I've managed to find the name Peverell is Nature's Nobility, a wizarding genealogy. I borrowed it from Creature, she explained, as Ron raised his eyebrows. It lists the pure-blood families that are now extinct in the male line. Apparently, the Peverells were one of the earliest families to vanish. Extinct in the male line? Repeated Ron. It means the names died out, said Hermione, centuries ago, in the case of the Peverells. They could still have descendants, though. They'd just be called something different. Okay, so all we know about them is that their line has died out, or that the ancestors have a different name. That's all we know about these Peveril folks for now. And then it came to Harry in one shining piece, the memory that had stirred at the sound of the name Peveril. A filthy old man brandishing an ugly ring in the face of the ministry official. And he cried aloud, "Mavolo Gaunt." "Sorry?" said Ron and Hermione together. "Mavolo Gaunt. You know whose grandfather. In the Pensieve with Dumbledore. Marvolo Gaunt said he was descended from the Peverils." Oh. Ron and Hermione looked bewildered. The ring that became the Horcrux. Marvolo Gaunt said it had the Peveril coat of arms on it. I saw him waving it in the bloke from the ministry's face. He nearly shoved it up his nose. "The Peveril coat of arms?" said Hermione sharply. "Could you see what it looked like? Looked like?" "Not really," said Harry, trying to remember. "There was nothing fancy on there, as far as I could see. Maybe a few scratches. I only ever saw it really close up after it had been cracked open." Harry saw Hermione's comprehension in the sudden widening of her eyes. Ron was looking from one to the other, astonished. "Blimey. You reckon it was this sign again? The sign of the Hallows?" "Why not?" said Harry excitedly. "Marvolo Gaunt was an ignorant old git, I forgot, who lived like a pig. All he cared about was his ancestry. If that ring had been passed down through the centuries, he might not have known what it really was. There was no books in that house, and trust me, he wasn't the type to read fairy tales to his kids. He'd have loved to think the scratches on the stone were a coat of arms, because as far as he was concerned, having pure blood made you practically royal." "Yeah, and that's all very interesting," said Hermione cautiously. "But Harry, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking..." "Well, why not? Why not?" said Harry, abandoning caution. "It was a stone, wasn't it?" He looked at Ron for support. "What if it was the resurrection stone?" Ron's mouth fell open. "Blimey. But would it still work if Dumbledore broke..." Work, Ron, it never worked. There's no such thing as a resurrection stone." Hermione had leapt to her feet, looking exasperated and angry. "Harry, you're trying to fit everything into the Hallows story." "Fit everything in?" he repeated. "Hermione, it fits of its own accord. I know the sign of the Deathly Hallows was on that stone. Gaunt said he was descended from the Peverils. A minute ago you told us you never saw the mark on the stone properly." "Where do you reckon the ring is now?" Okay, wait. "Where do you reckon the ring is now?" Ron asked Harry. "What did Dumbledore do with it after he broke it open?" But Harry's imagination was racing ahead, far beyond Ron and Hermione's. Okay, so these three Peveril brothers are the ancestors of Voldemort, huh? Apparently. So his imagination. 3 objects or hallows, which, if united, will make the possessor master of death. Master, conqueror, vanisher. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. So that's what Voldemort is trying to do. As with the Horcruxes, this is another strategy to overcome death, to become master of death, to not die. And he saw himself, possessor of the Hallows, facing Voldemort, whose Horcruxes were no match. Neither can live while the other survives. Was this the answer? Hallows versus Horcruxes? Was there a way, after all, to ensure that he was the one who triumphed? If he were the master of the Deathly Hallows, would he be safe? Harry? But he scarcely heard Hermione. He had pulled out his invisibility cloak and was running through it through his fingers. The cloth supple as water, light as air. He had never seen anything to equal it in his nearly 77 years in the wizarding world. The cloak was exactly what Xenophilius had described. A cloak that really and truly renders the wearer completely invisible and endures eternally, giving constant and impenetrable concealment, no matter what spells are cast at it. And then, with a gasp, he remembered. Dumbledore had my cloak. The night my parents died. His voice shook, and he could feel the color in his face, but he did not care. My mum told Sirius Dumbledore borrowed the cloak. This is why he wanted to examine it, because he thought it was the third Hallow. Ignotus Peveril is buried in Godric's Hollow. Harry was walking blindly around the tent, feeling as though great new vistas of truth were opening all around him. He's my ancestor. I'm descended from the third brother. It all makes sense. Oh, shoot. So him and Voldemort are related? Oh, damn. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so there's 3 brothers. This is what I'm understanding, or guessing at least. Voldemort is descended from one of the brothers. Harry is descended from one of the brothers. So they're like great cousins or something like that. What? But there's also a 3rd brother. There's a 3rd brother. So what if somebody else... What if there is somebody else who is just as equally powerful as them? Ugh. Can somebody... I mean, I can't find it right now. Can somebody in the chat, and maybe Lois, you can summarize this, put up the prophecy, the different prophecies that were written about them? I just want to take another look at those for a second. I bet there's a 3rd person. I bet there's a 3rd ancestor. I bet there is. He felt armed in certainty, in his belief in the Hallows, as if the mere idea of possessing them was giving him protection, and he felt joyous as he turned back to the other 2. Harry, said Hermione again, but he was busy undoing the pouch around his neck, his fingers shaking hard. Read it, he told her, pushing his mother's letter into her hand. Uh-oh. Another spinny wheel. Huh? Can you hear me? Oh well. I guess it's over. Are we back? It's back. Ugh. Okay, I don't know what was happening there. Okay, good. Okay. Read it, he told her, pushing his mother's letter into her hand. Read it! Dumbledore had the cloak, Hermione. Why else would he want it? He didn't need a cloak. He could perform a disillusionment charm so powerful that he made himself completely invisible without one. Oh, it's all going back and forth. Hey, y'all. Yeah, okay, I'll end it for now. Sorry. It's in the middle, but it's... If it happens again that it buffs out, then I'll just end it. Sorry about that. So I'll go back to the last thing that Harry said. He says, "Read it." Where is it? Read it. Read it. Dumbledore had the cloak, Hermione. Why else would he want it? He didn't need a cloak. He could perform a disillusionment charm so powerful that he made himself completely invisible without one. Something fell to the floor and rolled, glittering, under a chair. He had dislodged the snitch when he pulled out the letter. He stooped to pick it up. And then the newly tapped spring of fabulous discoveries threw him another gift, and shock and wonder erupted inside him so that he shouted out, "It's in here! He left me the ring! It's in the snitch!" You reckon? He could not understand why Ron looked taken aback. It was obvious. So clear to Harry, everything fitted. Everything. His cloak was the 3rd Hallow, and when he discovered how to open the snitch, he would have the 2nd, and then all he would needed to do was find the 1st Hallow, the Elder Wand, and then... But it was as though a curtain fell on a lit stage. All his excitement, all his hope and happiness were extinguished at a stroke, and he stood alone in the darkness, and the glorious spell was broken. That's what he's after. The change in his voice made Ron and Hermione look even more scared. Lois, thank you. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. But, okay, I'm going to come back to that. Change in his voice made Ron and Hermione look even more scared. You know who's after the Elder Wand? He turned his back on their strained, incredulous faces. He knew it was the truth. It all made sense. Voldemort was not seeking a new wand. He was seeking an old wand, a very old wand indeed. Harry walked to the entrance of the tent, forgetting about Ron and Hermione as he looked into the night, thinking. He will have the power to the Dark Lord. No, not neither. Okay. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him. Thrice defied him. Come here. Thrice. 3 objects. I'm just philosophizing here. What if those 3 brothers, what if, like, this Dark Lord or whatever Voldemort is, what if he's like a reincarnation that pops around, you know, like kind of like Legend of Zelda, like, what's his face, the the bad guy in Legend of Zelda. But what if he's like a bad thing that keeps on coming up, and they defied him with those 3 objects, and then what's the rest? Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. Yeah, okay, so that's the month. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal. Okay, that happened. He will have the power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the hand knows not, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. Okay, so it's just 2. There's nothing about 3 people in there. Ganon, yeah. Okay, I'm going to end here. I know there's more to the scene, but I'm going to end here. A lot of info, a lot of potential theories. That was fun. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Same time, 6 p.m. PST for some more Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It's getting really, really interesting. Really, really fun. All right, everybody.